Hey, Bob.
Karen, it is wonderful to see you.
So glad to be back for another episode of Momentum Now.
And let's rock and roll.
Yes, we have Ian Matthew-Clayton with us. So Ian is the Vice President and Chief Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Officer at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, where he leads a multi-year inclusion, diversity, and equity strategy to build a more inclusive, equitable workplace. His work focuses on creating programs, policies, and practices that attract, develop, and retain a diverse, highly skilled workforce. Before joining Dana-Farber, Ian was Executive Director of Talent Acquisition at Johns Hopkins University, where he led university-wide recruitment efforts in advanced diversity hiring through the Hopkins Local Initiative. Ian is originally from Dominica. Ian's lived experiences have shaped his belief in the power of diverse perspectives to solve societal challenges and deepen his lifelong commitment to equity and justice. And also, Ian is a member of the MVP board. Hi, Ian.
Ian, it's great to have you on Momentum Now.
Thank you both. Wow, this is so exciting for me. Really, really honored to be here, to have an opportunity to chat with you both. As I mentioned to you before this podcast, I did listen to some of the previous ones, and I'm ready for the both of you.
I mean, what's really cool about this, though, is that, you're part of the board. But what people may not know is that we don't necessarily hang out all the time. So this is like a really good way to get to know our people.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Fantastic. Learning about your background, Ian, it's clear that you've focused on HR and talent acquisition, which I think is really important for our listeners, young professionals who may need opportunities and access to different learning experiences and internships and things like that. And so it would be wonderful to explore some of the barriers and opportunities that you see for young professionals as they navigate a successful career. So, as you know, MVP really focuses on providing a lot of that access and opportunity. When young professionals are looking for their first job, what are some of the things that you think they need to consider before they even start going online and going on LinkedIn and looking at different job opportunities and job descriptions? What do you think they need to ensure they have front and center and figured out for themselves?
That's a great question, Bob. And I think, first of all, I think probably it's important for me to just let them know what talent acquisition is, right? I'm not sure too many people understand that term generally. Basically, my team is the team that hires people, right? So this is the team that you would submit your resume to electronically. They would receive your resume and they would review your resume. And they would make the determination of whether you are being called in for a job interview or not. And I say called in very loose because I know most interviews now are happening virtually sometimes, right? And so, and these are the teams that would usually interview you. I always tell young people, before you even sort of dive right into, applying for a job, you need to really make sure that you're sort of figuring out where you are today in terms of your life. Are you in school, right? And if you are in school, how well are you doing in school, right? Are you really sort of like at your peak, doing the best that you can, or are you having a hard time? Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're sort of, you're applying for a job that's very demanding, that's going to take up more of your time, and then potentially you could risk doing really bad at both things, right? Bad at your job and still struggle with school because you're sort of overstretched. So just really sort of pay attention to where you are today and how much can you commit to at a certain time, right, in your life. And then what do you want to explore? Like, where do you want, where do you want to put your time and energy? This is the time in your life where you have tremendous opportunity to try it all, to really go out there and explore careers, explore different fields and different types of environments, right? You have hospital environments, healthcare environments, finance environments, retail, right? I started in retail myself. I used to be a salesperson at Macy's in the Bronx, and that job really sort of helped shape a lot of my work ethic, a lot, and it was a great opportunity for me after school and on the weekends to really kind of become a little bit more of a participant in society. I was very shy back then, and so it was very important that I get out. And so, really trying to figure out who you are, where you are in your life in terms of like school and work and what you can commit to, and just where you want to try and spend your time. And then you can start to really do the work around the preparation for applying for a role. But I think it really starts there. And I like people to really do that work first before they start jumping into the work world.
First of all, shout out to the Bronx. That's what I and to that end, right? Like, so you talked about you're an immigrant, right?
Yes.
My parents were immigrants from Jamaica. And so they ended up in the Bronx.
Yes.
And a lot of Caribbean people end up there.
Yes. Yes.
Bronx and Brooklyn.
That's right.
And I would just love to know, what that experience was like for you.
I was born in Dominica. My dad served in the Vietnam War. Back then, actually, this is an interesting story because back then, the United States military recruited troops in the Caribbean, in South America, and Central America with the promise of citizenship, right? My dad had just graduated from high school, living in a small Caribbean island, dating a beautiful woman, my mother. What an opportunity that was presented to him. He had to serve in for the United States, and so he took that opportunity and he served in the military and he became a citizen, and then he brought his family to the United States with him. And so I was pretty young, 6 years old when I came to this country. But I think it's hard as an immigrant, right? Because if there's any type of accent, you're very conscious of it. I was already in school and learning how to spell with the OUs using, the British system of spelling. And I was just spelling everything. And people were looking at me like, what are you spelling? And so, it takes time to sort of build your confidence when you are sort of new to a country, new experiences, new culture, all around you, think everything is new. And so I tell people, remember that for others, you're new to them, and they're interested in you and interested in your culture, and they can learn from you and you can learn from them. So don't be scared to share yourself and really sort of talk to your friends and other people about your experiences and learn from them as well, and go on a journey together with young people. And so that's really what I learned to do. Now, I had it a little bit easier because, Karen, to your point, in the Bronx, everyone was from the Caribbean. So it was just learning another island. Oh, you're from Jamaica? What is that island like, right? But, just remember that you being an immigrant, you also have an advantage. The advantage is that you have an experience that others don't have, a culture that others aren't experiencing. So you have an opportunity to share with others, and other people can learn from you. I know it feels like scary because you feel like you're so alone and you're the only one, and everyone is from the United States and they're learning and they speak like this, but you have a lot that people want as well, and that you can share. And some jobs look for that, right? Especially in healthcare. So in healthcare, we serve a variety of communities. And so it's important to us that we have employees that are able to speak and identify with people from a variety of communities. Here in Boston, we have a large Haitian population. We have a large Brazilian Portuguese population. So we need and a variety of Latinx populations. And so we need workforce members that have that experience and identity to help others, our patients who are Haitian, help them understand what the cancer journey is going to be like. They learn best from people that really identify strongly with them. So just recognize all of you immigrant young people out there that you have so much to give. And as you grow and learn, you're going to be able to contribute even more. And so definitely don't shy away from it.
I think it's so important that you bring that up, that, certain industries, particularly healthcare, are very welcoming, right? Because we have this dialogue going on. It could discourage people, but there's definitely many organizations that see the benefit of having different perspectives.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. Yep. That's exactly right, Karen. And, we know in healthcare, for example, that when we have a workforce that is very diverse, that are bringing a lot of different perspectives, so that and diverse on all levels, right? So we don't just want our entry level folks to be from a variety of backgrounds, and then all of the upper management roles are not, because the patients actually, they see that and they identify and they're like, wait a minute, why are none of the doctors Black? Why are none of the doctors Latino? Why are none of the doctors Asian? They'll say things like that. And so it's very important to us that, we are reflecting the diversity of not just race and ethnicity, of perspectives up and down the organization. And we know that when that happens, we see patient outcomes improve. Our patients do better. They end up in a better situation in the end. They'll join the clinical trials that save their lives, and more likely than if they were not engaging with someone that they can identify with. And they're happier. They're more satisfied with the services that and the care that we deliver. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're delivering some pretty exceptional care at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. But there's always more that you can do, right? And when you start having communities that typically would not go to a Dana-Farber start coming into Dana-Farber because you're doing the work, and you start to get more patients of Haitian descent and patients of, from Brazil, and patients from all of these different places. When they start to do good as well, you're really, doing this clinical service.
So how do students, when they're coming up in their careers, lean into that identity? So lean into the good stuff. When I was, coming up, it was more about trying to hide or, make it very vanilla in a very, I don't really want to
blend in
some distinct way. And so, but now, as you're talking about, it seems to be an attribute. So how did they learn to lean into those attributes?
Yeah, no, you're right, Karen. And it sounds like maybe you and I grew up around the same era. Just because during my time, a really good example is in my country, in Dominica, they speak a French Creole, a patois, which is similar to like Haitian Creole or other Creole within the Caribbean islands. And my mother did not want us to learn because she thought we would be at a disadvantage. She thought you have to learn English. And so we never learned that language. And in hindsight, right now, like I was telling you, we want people who speak different languages so that they can talk to our patients. And so I tell young people, make sure that you're connecting with community. And, if there's, organizations in your high school, organizations in your college that celebrate diversity, or affinity groups like a fraternity or sorority or some type of like affinity group, like a union that sort of like really celebrates and diversity, people join them. And that way it helps you and really sort of continue to build that identity and feel comfortable amongst others that have a shared experience, but also then you have opportunities to learn about how you can share that experience more broadly. Like, how can I, now that I feel comfortable as a Dominican from the Bronx, how can I share that with others to help other people feel comfortable with who I am and see the value that I bring in my identity. So join clubs and organizations and be a part of the community experience for sure.
Ian, you must have had quite a few unique experiences coming to the U.S. at 6 years old and in school and then navigating a successful career. What are some of those childhood experiences, or how did your childhood in general impact your career?
Yeah, I think that's probably, I talk about this a lot, Bob, because it really is the reason why I am, I've really sort of put inclusion, diversity, and equity at the forefront of all of my roles. When my dad left the military and came to the United States, he had such a great military experience. I mean, that sounds a little bit odd, but just in terms of like the sort of fraternity, the friendships that he developed, meeting, others from all over the country, different races and backgrounds and experiences, that he thought that when he came to the United States, that was the experience that he was going to have. And he immediately experienced barriers as a Black man in the country. In fact, so much that when, he talks about going to the VA to access services and they basically closed the door on him and he was sort of on his own. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really, he had a lot of very, very sort of racist experiences. And I, as a young person, and I don't know why, I was very, I was very aware of it. I was very aware that we were seen differently and not necessarily in the community where we were living, but like whenever we went somewhere else, there was something different about us. And I had to try to figure what that was. And I realized, oh, it's my skin color. I came from an island where everyone looked like me. So it was not really right. And so even back then, I remember telling my parents, like, this is wrong. People shouldn't treat people like this because of the color of their skin, because of who they are, or because they're an immigrant. This is wrong. And my mother used to say, you're going to be a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. But that core belief of fairness really stayed with me. And as a very, very young person, decided, and I don't know why I decided this as a young person, that I was going to do everything in my power to really ensure that everyone is treated fairly and everyone is treated equally and everyone has opportunity and access to be their best self. And so in every single role that I've ever had, I've found a way to participate in contributing to bettering an organization through fairness. And so sometimes it's just a club in the organization that I connect with. Once I started to go to HR, I realized there were more ways I could do it, through hiring, through, being in the community. But I've always found ways that I can continue to ensure that we are creating equitable and just organizations, and we're because of the organizations, we're sort of contributing to the society as in the broadest of sense. And so it just stuck with me, and I believe in it, and I still believe it to this day. And I also started to choose organizations that were mission driven. Mm. And so when I graduated from college, my first sort of real job was at the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, because I was like, okay, I can what a mission they have. They want to make a healthier New York City. They want everyone to be healthy in New York City, and they want to find ways to ensure that happens. And so, and that was it. I've stayed in organizations that have a really, really strong mission, and that's important to me.
That's fantastic.
I want to go back to something you talked about a little earlier, which was in terms of balancing your time with work and school.
Yeah.
I just want to dig into that a little bit because, nowadays students are highly encouraged to get internships, definitely in the summer, sometimes in the academic year, but basically to build this huge bench of work experience before graduating, right? And some school models are built around that. And I remember, again, when I was going to college, that was optional, right? And when I did it, it was super helpful in my job search, but now it's required and everybody has to do it. And there's different levels of difficulty in even obtaining that internship. So as you think about today and that type of pressure, what advice would you give to students in how to achieve that balance?
That is a lot of pressure.
To have it, right, to get a job.
And it is a lot of pressure, for sure. If you want to get into the top colleges, right? If you want to, you're supposed to do all of these extracurricular activities and school, get all these, amazing straight A's in school. So it's a lot of pressure, but I worked in higher education, so I got a little bit of a peek behind the admissions, wall. And what I do know is equally they value excellence. And so sometimes it's hard to achieve excellence when you're spread thin. You're starting to be not mediocre, but okay in certain pieces of it. Imagine instead of trying to be okay in 5 different things, you were excellent in one thing and really good in another, right? And so how further you can get by really putting your heart and soul into one thing, than sort of like, burning yourself out, getting really tired, and then at the end the result is you're okay in a few things. I think it's important to prioritize your activities. Like, what is most important to you? Some people, school is important. I think school is an important, education. Still an educated person does still make more money and is much more successful than people that are not. But let's say you're a student that appreciates, working with your hands or doing vocational activities or something that's like, electrician, plumbing, those type of activities. You might want to prioritize your sort of learning of those skills above, let's just say, something else. Like, let's say school, you'll do good, but you're like ready once you graduate because you're going to go to this vocational program to become a plumber. And that's where you're going to put all of your time, effort, and energy, as much as you can. And so I think it's important to really understand yourself. Now, for some, maybe you want to be a doctor. And so you're really going to need to put your time and energy into school, right? 100% commitment, making sure that you are preparing yourself for what it's going to take to pursue a medical degree, a medical profession. So you want to prioritize that over some of the other activities that maybe you're doing. But, it's just, you want to find excellence somewhere and really, I know a lot of young people, when I talk to them, they tell me they want to be like a rapper or like do music or like, acting and those type of careers. And I always tell them those folks work hard and they spend a lot of time being excellent in one thing. And so that's an example of excellence in one thing. I mean, they commit themselves to their craft and they really work hard. It's, what you see in the end is years and years and years of hard work on the craft. And so I think you take that same principle and apply it in everything that you do.
Bob might like this because I know AI is one of his favorite topics, but I asked AI ChatGPT to like surface some blind spots for me. And I asked it a series of really hard questions. And one of the things was like, you do too much.
You do too much. That's the quote. You do too much.
You do too much.
Do two things.
I'd love to know what voice it used and if it had a little attitude when it said it, you know?
You do too much.
I might need to receive that after listening to you talk about it.
Well, Karen, you said AI, so let's go there. Yeah. So I recently heard in an interview with a CEO of a large technology organization, and the question was, what advice would you give young people who are looking, at the wall of AI coming their way, and still in school? And the advice was, focus on the basics, focus on creativity, focus on liberal arts, focus on excellence, as you mentioned. But when you think of AI and when it comes to talent acquisition as well, do you have any thoughts or advice or a point of view on how young professionals can leverage AI as well as ensure they're making the most of their career, either with AI or alongside of AI?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think even organizations are trying to figure that out.
Sure, yeah.
How to leverage AI. The recruiters are trying to figure out how to leverage AI, to get to find the best candidates. I like the idea of starting at the basics in everything you do, right? And so I think really young people, right? I mean, they've lived in computer, right? This is what they've always known and what they've
digital
always
natives.
That's right. They can probably answer this question better than me, honestly. But I think, you have an opportunity to really learn the tools at your disposal and leverage them so for example, your resume, right? When you're building out a resume or when you're writing a cover letter, I don't think people do that anymore, but when you're writing some type of letter to sort of, to share with an employer about what your interests are, or for an application, I definitely think that that's where you should start really practicing with AI, right? Now, here's the rub, right? You don't use it to write your letter. You use it as an aid. And so the thoughts should still come from you, but now you have a helper. You actually have someone. If you're not that great in English, if English is not your favorite subject, you actually have a helper that's going to help you with your sentence structure, your thinking, and really use it in that kind of way. So as opposed to like, write me an essay, period, or write a resume. Really, you do the writing first, and then have the tool really help you sort of fine tune and be an aid to helping you with clarity and sentence structure and all of those important things to make your writing even better. That's honestly the way I use it, Bob and Karen. In my day-to-day, I use AI for communications that we send to the workforce. I use it for sometimes if I have a really tricky email and I want to make sure that I'm saying the right tone. I don't want to be too directed, but I want to make sure that someone is getting the message I'm trying to deliver. I write something and then I put it in. At least the AI is not going to laugh at my terrible writing. There's no judgments from the AI when I take my terrible communication and I put it in there, and it gives me some help, and then I fine tune it, and then once you start to, what's fascinating is once you start to just practice in that way and use it in that way for your resume, helping you with interview questions, like you can put you can put a prompt in AI that says, I'm going on an interview for this job for a salesperson at this pharmaceutical company. I'm new in my career. What type of questions do you think I will be asked? The AI will come up with some questions, right? Yeah. And then maybe you can also maybe use the tool to say, okay, this is how I will respond to that question. What do you think? Can you help me with my response? And then you think about your response and you put it in the AI, and then it will give you maybe an improved response. So this is the way you can use it for applying for a job, the interview part of the job, even what do I wear, right? Like if you're not sure, like, okay, I'm going to a job in a pharmaceutical company. It seems to be relaxed environment. What should I wear for an interview? And the tool can also help you with that as well. And so there's some basic sort of prompts that you can use it as a young person as you start on this journey of exploring careers.
I've found for me, it's great as a starting point, almost to kickstart. So yes. In the start or yes. The finish where you're polishing something. But I stay away from using it from start to finish because I want it to be mine rather than someone else's. And so that's how I've been using it. I had a conversation coincidentally with a good friend of mine who's a recruiter, and today is a big day for her because they're bringing in AI tools, and that includes automated initial interviews with a bot that's recorded, and then selection on the candidates that should go to the next round, all automated. Mm-hmm. So we're going to see a lot of changes for sure. But if we could pivot now, we've talked about mentorship and the early stages. Have there been some mentors in your career that have changed the direction for you or have changed life for you for the better?
Yes.
Tell us about those. Yeah.
Absolutely, Bob. Absolutely. When I started, the very first question you asked me, what should a young person do when they're, thinking about jobs and how should they start? And I mentioned they should start by understanding themselves. Are you in school and figuring out how much time you have? I also believe that it is important in the working world as well. And so I was early in my career working at the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, doing good. I was very, working hard, doing good. But there was something that was unresolved in me. And I didn't realize how much that unresolved matter was impacting my ability to truly be the best that I could be in my career. Until I met a mentor. So I identify as a Black gay male. And early in my career, I was not out. I was not comfortable with my identity for a variety of reasons, right? The time, I'm a little bit, that time in a few decades ago, right?
Yeah,
I'm also there was a different climate, even though, but I was also a Caribbean immigrant, and I was very ambitious, and I thought that I really did have a thought that was my deficiency. And so I had to, that was the one deficiency I had. I was working hard. I was in school. I was doing all these things, but that was my deficiency. And I met a boss. I had one of my bosses who was actually out in the workplace. She was out in the workplace, and I had an opportunity to just observe her. She would bring her wife to events like any other couple in the workplace, if we had events, would bring.
Awesome.
And I was seeing that, and I also saw that she was well regarded. She continued to excel in the organization, and I thought, well, that's not really a barrier. Like, that's not really a deficiency for her. It's just who she is. Like, that doesn't really. And I started to make those connections. And one day I was just brave enough to tell her. I was just brave enough. She really built a great relationship with me, and I was brave enough to just tell her my truth, but also my struggles. And she just really helped me. Again, starting at the basics, she says, "Does anyone in your family know?" And I said, "No." And she helped me come up with a plan to come out to my mother. And so and we built from there. She helped me come out to my family. And then once I had that family support and I resolved that, then, I could turn around and look at myself in the workplace and how I was showing up in the workplace. And I tell you, once I was truthful of who I am in the workplace and my true identity in the workplace, that was it. I felt like I was a new person. I felt like I had just graduated from another college.
Yeah, right.
It's like, did I graduate from college?
Yeah.
And that was it. I just continued to excel even further.
It sounds like you were just being you and being genuine. And that's not just good, I think, for you, but everyone around you.
Yes.
Right? That guessing game goes away and it's not an issue anymore.
That's right. That's
right.
I didn't realize how much my identity and my sort of struggles with it was holding me back just in growth.
Wow.
And so again, I just like to tell people to really do a lot of work on yourself. As much as you can, and you'll start to see the benefits in other aspects of your life, like your job, like your career. And you'll only go further the more you're very confident in yourself and you know who you are. And then you find new aspects of yourself that you didn't even know existed. I realized, oh, I'm a leader. Like, people follow me. Like, people are inspired by me. People really, I have an empathic soul. Like, people, I lead with empathy, and people really appreciate that. And then that's when I pivoted to leadership, and I started to sort of explore management and became a supervisor, and really started to explore those type of roles where I can sort of help guide other workforce members behind me. And so that was a pivot.
That is a big pivot. I mean, it's like you had to deny pieces of yourself, and then you layer in some of the societal issues across all forms of your identity, right? Yes. And then only when you fully accepted yourself, because you even name your positive attributes, because naming them, just like what you just did, is important. So you could visualize and actualize them and turn them into something powerful.
Amen.
That's right.
Amen. Say it again.
Right. The quote is from Karen today, and I love that.
Yeah. That's great.
You could use that quote for my podcast. I don't mind. That was well said, Karen. Actually, that was well said.
But you demonstrated. You said it. I mean, you
that's
demonstrated.
What I experienced. That's truly what I experienced. And so, it's important for our young professionals to spend the time taking care of themselves and their identity, and learning themselves, and focusing on what matters most, their relationships with family and friends, networking. MVP gives our young professionals an opportunity to meet mentors, and and that is what's going to ground you. Mm-hmm. And those you'll find people in those moments that will really, even if they're not giving, even if you don't get what you wanted, what you were seeking, you may get something completely, maybe you were seeking, I just need some resume advice from Bob, right? And you go to Bob, you may actually learn something else from Bob. And that helps you become a stronger individual and a more defined individual and a person that is more powerful inside. And that is actually going to take you even further along than Bob just helping you with your resume. And so I think that's very important to do when you're young.
God, isn't that the truth? Right? No, really though, right? Yeah. I mean, there's times when you're brave enough to go to speak with someone that you don't know very well or you think could help you in a certain way. Yeah. And when you finish that discussion or maybe a series of discussions, you walk away with so much more than yes. I'd like help with this resume, or I'd like help with an introduction over into this department. And all of a sudden you realize all the opportunity that can come from a mentoring relationship.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Well, do you want me to do my wrap, Bob?
Yes, please.
Okay, Ian. So here are some of the things I heard. Some of them are paraphrased. Some of them are exactly what you said. Right?
I love this.
So this is the time in your life when you have tremendous opportunity to explore. So explore.
That's right. That's right.
Make sure you're connecting with your community and lean into organizations, affinity groups, unions, etc., that celebrate diversity to help you build your identity and how you experience your identity more broadly. We just talked about how important that is, right?
That's right.
And choose organizations that align to your sense of purpose.
That's right.
Sometimes it's hard to achieve excellence when you are spread thin.
Mm-hmm.
Ask yourself how much further you can go by putting your heart and soul into one thing. Find excellence somewhere.
That's right.
Start at the basics of everything you do.
Everything you do.
And focus on what matters to you most. Find what grounds you so you can become stronger, more defined, and powerful.
Whoa.
That's what you said.
Oh.
Ian, before we let you go, I love it. Yeah, no, thank you, Karen.
I believe that.
Yeah. Before we exit, Ian, how about some rapid fire questions?
Oh, I am ready.
Are you ready to rock and roll?
I am ready.
Sweet, crisp answers. Unless you have a story, then dig in, right?
Okay.
Dig in. What was your favorite subject in high school?
Okay, I have to dig in on this one. My favorite subject, I'll be fast. My favorite subject in high school was math. And I won a math award, and I was determined to become an engineer, and I went to college, and I excelled in calculus 1, I excelled in calculus 2, and that third calculus. What I realized was there was an exam, like very early in the start of the semester. The professor gave us an exam, and I studied everything for the exam, all my formulas, and I was ready to go. And I sat in the classroom, and the professor had one formula on the board, and he said, "Solve this equation." And I was like, "What? What is this?" And I looked around the room, and the other students, many of the students were going at it, and I had no idea what he was talking about. And I packed my bag, and I got up to the front, and I went to the professor, and I was like, "I don't know what this is. What are you talking about?" He said, "I give this exam very early in the semester every year because what math is theoretical. And this is the time when we have to test to see if you have that math mind and you're not just consistently applying formulas." And so for many years, I was enjoying formulas. Give me a formula, I'll apply it, I'll solve that problem. And so my math career ended there, which is a good thing. Good thing.
Math is theory? I had no idea.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
wow,
goodness.
there's a life lesson in there somewhere, isn't there?
Yes.
That's fantastic. What was your least favorite subject in high school?
I never get asked that, and probably physics.
Okay, all right, I'll take that.
I think I
all
was
right.
I was a little bit of a honors student, so I had to take all these like science and math and classes, and I liked the math, didn't really like the science as much. So
physics wasn't.
I remember
wasn't for
like,
you.
What is this? Again with the theory.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about advice. What's the best advice you've ever received?
I think when I was in junior high school, my principal, or middle school it is today, right? It's not junior high school. I'm aging myself a little bit. He used to have a sign that he would keep, like every day before school, he would hold a sign that said, "Keep on keeping on." And you're in middle school, don't really understand what he's talking about. And one day I just went to him and just asked him, like, "What are you talking about?" Keep on keeping on. And he just said, he shared that, you're going to go through a lot in life. You're going to wake up excited one day, sad another. You might have a lot of different experiences that are not always great, that can try to really keep you back and hold you back. But in life, what is so important is that you keep going, that you just keep on keeping on. And I still use that. I'm very simple. So I still use that simple phrase today. I had a very rough day at work today. There was a lot of challenges, and halfway through the day, I just said to myself, "Ian, keep on keeping on." And here I am, feeling so much better with you.
Fantastic.
With you too.
This is usually our wrap up question. It's a big one for me. What is your why? What's your why? Why do you do what you do?
My why is definitely I have a helping heart, and I was a middle child, and I took the role of helping my siblings above me and helping my siblings below me, even though there were parents in the house. And my parents used to, say, "Well, what are you doing? You want to be the parent?" Kind of, yeah. And so I just, for me, it's about ensuring that I'm contributing to a society that is just, that's equitable, that everyone can live their full potential. And so every day I just try to think to myself, what can I do to help others to live their full potential? And so I have tremendous opportunity at home. I now have some new opportunities to MVP to help young people reach their full potential. But that's my why. We have to be there for each other. And that's a core of who I am. And so I lean on that a lot to make sure that I am doing everything that I can to live that out. Truly.
Ian, thank you. Thank you for providing us the gift of time and advice, and for everything you do for MVP so we can reach our full potential. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, right. Ian. It was so good to get to know you even better.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Karen. Really.
All right, I'll see you at the next board meeting.
See you there. Bye, everyone.
All right.
Bye.